thin rays of gold.
Hi everyone, my name's DIABETOR, and today I'm going to show you how to get the Axe of Godrick plus 10 easily. This is a pretty strong weapon that can do some really cool stuff when you have it fully upgraded. So I'm going to show you how to get it and how to make a build for it. In order to get the axe, we need to kill Margit the Fell Omen and Godrick the Grafted at Stormhill Castle, so I'll walk you through beating them as easily as possible. The biggest obstacle between us and a plus 10 is the Godskin Noble at the Volcano Manor. However, with the right setup, he becomes hilariously easy, and so today I'm going to show you how to kick his ass so that we can get all the Somber Stones needed to bring this thing up to plus 10. To start off, we're going to go to the Church of Elleh in Limgrave, where we're going to buy the 3 cracked pots that Kale sells, as well as his crafting kit and a bunch of throwing daggers. We need the pots and the crafting kit to make a few throwing pots that are going to help us later on, and we need the throwing daggers because they're just nice to have. After that, we're going directly north from the church, where we're going to go to the Groveside Cave and grab another cracked pot. Since this is a fresh character, I don't have any of the maps yet, but we will grab them as we go along. Inside the cave, there's about 5 or 6 wolves, so be careful of them, but directly below you on this ledge here, there's a corpse that has the cracked pot. So grab that, and then you can either fight the wolves or the boss, or you can just run the hell out of the cave and follow the path north to the Gatefront Ruins. In case you're a beginner, I just want to point out on the map, you can see this brown obelisk underneath the Gatefront Ruins icon there. That is a map fragment. When you pick that up, it'll fill in your map with the details of the area for that map. So anyway, we talked to Melina at the Gatefront Ruins site of Grace so that we could get Torrent and the ability to level up. Then we're going to go into the Gatefront Ruins, there's the map, so make sure you grab those. And we're going to go down into the cellar, where we're going to grab the Storm Stomp Ash of War and the Whetstone Knife. We're not going to end up using Storm Stomp in this run, but the Whetstone Knife is really important and it's an item you should have for all of your characters. So you see now that I picked up my map, we can actually see the map of Limgrave, and we're going to head back to the Church of Elleh. If you fast travel here, then Rena will meet you, and she will give you the Spirit Calling Bell and the Lone Wolf Ashes. I won't be using Spirit Ashes in this run, but you can use them if you want to help with the bosses and stuff. So now we're going to head into the Mistwood, which is the east half of Limgrave. And that involves going across the bridge there. We're going to need to come back to this area later, so there's a second site of grace there called Aghill Lake North that you're going to want to grab, and I'll show that in a second. We're going to go across the bridge and follow the road to the northeast, where we're going to go and grab a couple sites of grace, as well as the map for the east half of Limgrave. So here's the Aghill Lake North site of grace. As you can see, it's just on the other side of the Gatefront Ruins. Like I said, we're going to come back here, so make sure you grab it. Along the way, you're going to hear someone calling out to you as you cross the road toward the bridge. It's this bush right here. If you walk up to it and you hit it, it turns into the demi-human Bok. He's a friendly NPC you can talk to. I'm talking to him specifically because if you talk to him twice, he gives you 10 mushrooms. And we're going to need mushrooms to craft a few throwing pots during this run, so that's just a nice thing to grab there. Anyway, so this is after I cross the bridge. I just follow the road to the north, and then you just follow it right around the corner to the east. And as you come down the hill, you'll see there's a rock that has the site of grace behind it, so make sure you grab that. So that's the Mistwood outskirts, and you can see on the non-filled-in map that there's the map fragment over there. And we're also going to head to the north part of this road where that curve is, which is where the Third Church of Marika is. So grab the East Limgrave map, right next to the giant minor Erd tree. And while we're here, we're also going to run up to the base of the Erd tree and grab the 2 crystal tears that are in a basin over here. The one we need is the Spiked Crack Tear, which increases the damage you do with charged heavy attacks when you drink it in your Wondrous Physick, which we're about to grab at the Third Church of Marika. So in the Third Church of Marika, there's the Crimson Crystal Tear and the Flask of Wondrous Physick. You can mix crystal tears into your Physick at a site of grace, and when you drink the Physick, it'll give you the buff that those tears offer. So the Spike Crack Tear is important because we're going to be using charge heavy attacks to kill the Godskin Noble later. Also, there's a Sacred Tear here, which you can use to upgrade your flasks, your healing flasks, as you just saw me do, so make sure you grab that and use that. And I'm going to mix that Spike Tear into my Physick. Up next, we're heading from the Gatefront Ruins into Stormhill. We're going to grab the site of grace at the Stormhill Shack, then we're going to grab another Crystal Tear to the northeast of that. We're also going to stop by a graveyard so that we can get a bunch of golden runes to have funds for a few things that we need to buy. And then we're going to go to the Warmaster shack and onto a ridge to the northeast of that so that we can grab a few more items. So here's the Stormhill shack. Along the way, I didn't show it, but there's a golden seed on the road that leads up here, so make sure you grab that. And also, while we're at the Stormhill shack, we're going to grab this stone sword key off of the corpse here. We're going to need 2 stone sword keys by the end of this run. So this is the first one, and we'll be picking up another one later. But make sure you have at least 1 stone sword key so that we can grab the second one later. Anyway, on this hill where the troll is, there's the Strength Knot Crystal Tier, which is going to come in handy later. And then we go south of that to this graveyard. There's a bunch of golden runes here. There's also these exploding clusters of balls, so if you have low vigor, they'll probably one-shot you, so be careful of them. You can run up to them so that they start exploding and then just run away before they blow. Grab all the golden runes in the graveyard, and then just right next to it, at the bottom of this little ridge, there's the Warmaster shack. We're going to grab a Site of Grace here. We're going to use this grace to farm 3 different things here. So first of all, there's root resin, which I'll explain in a minute. And then if you run behind the shack, there's a mushroom there. So you can grab the root resin, grab the mushroom, and then when you sit at the grace, they will respawn, and you can go and grab more of them. I recommend you grab about a dozen of each or so, do like a dozen runs, or maybe like 5 or 6 runs, because we already have plenty of mushrooms. We're going to need mushrooms for throwing pots, and we're going to need root resin for blood grease to kill the Godskin Noble. We're also going to head up here. So at this first spot that I marked, there's a patch of fire and slugs. There are 8 smoldering butterflies you can get here, and then if you kill the slugs, they have a chance of dropping smoldering butterflies too. So you can grab all the butterflies, kill the slugs, and then you can fast travel back to the Warmaster shack and come back here and farm smoldering butterflies here. We're going to need fire pots. We don't need that many, but it's good to just have a bunch of butterflies, so I suggest you do 1 or 2 runs of that. And then on this hill over here, we're going to kill that Godrick Knight to get the Golden Vow Ash of War, which is a nice buff that is going to come in handy for all the stuff we need to kill. Finally, while we're at it, we're going to come on top of this ruin and kill the Scarab for the Somber Stone 1 that it drops, which we're going to use to upgrade a weapon in a minute. We'll get more Somber Stones for Godrick's axe later, but in order to kill Godrick, we're going to use the Bloodhound Fang, which we're going to upgrade to +2 to be able to kill him. So after that, we're going to head down to the Saintsbridge. You can see there's this little shortcut you can take to get back down to the road quicker. And we're going to head down to the Saintsbridge and grab the Saintsbridge Site of Grace. Along the way, it's good to pick up any crafting materials you find. So for example, I grabbed this mushroom right here. Anyway, we're going to head across the bridge. On the other side of the bridge is a merchant that sells a cracked pot. So we're going to go to him and buy that cracked pot. Talk to him, he sells it for 600 runes, so this is why we picked up those golden runes. Instead of having to kill stuff to get runes, we can just sell a couple of these and have the 600 runes required to get the cracked pot. And like I said, there's a couple other things we're going to be buying later on too, so it's good to hold on to those golden runes. Alright, so we're almost done with the first phase of setup. Now we're going to go back to the Mistwood outskirts Site of Grace, and we're going to head up the big ruin to another graveyard. This graveyard is really important. Not only are there a bunch more golden runes that are going to come in handy later, but on this corpse here, we're going to grab a cookbook, which is going to give us the recipe for sleep pots. The sleep pots are going to be really important for killing the Godskin Noble later on, so make sure you grab this while we're here. And of course, you want to grab the rest of the golden runes too. We're going to need like 20,000 runes worth of golden runes, so make sure you pick them up. After that, we're going to head back to the Mistwood outskirts, and we're going to go south to the Mistwood ruins. And then after that, we're also going to head over to Fort Haight. Just to the west of it, at the bottom of the cliff, there's a Site of Grace on the spot that I marked there, so that's where we're going. So first, we're at the Mistwood ruins. We need to talk to Blaidd, which we're going to do in a little bit, but you can see he's on top of the tower howling. So we're going to go deal with that in a minute, but while we're here, we're going to grab these Trina's lilies around the sleeping bear. When you get in front of the bear, it's going to wake up, so grab the lilies, there's like 5 of them, and then run down into the cellar. Obviously, the bear is too big to follow you down here, but it actually can do a ranged attack that can hit you down the steps, so be careful of that. But in the cellar, we're going to grab the Axe Talisman, which also increases our charge attack damage, like the Spike Cracked here. So we're going to use that later on to kill some bosses. And then after that, just run for your fucking life and head over to Fort Haight. Grab the Site of Grace to the west of the fort. Here it is again, in case you need to see it. And now we're going to head up into the fort, where there's a few more items we got to grab. Just outside of the fort, there's a Bloodrose, so make sure you grab that. And then there's also this golden seed, obviously, so make sure you grab this. And then you should probably kill all the soldiers instead of just running past them, but I always just run past them. There's a couple more Bloodroses to pick up, so pick those up because we need them to craft blood grease later. And then inside this dark room here, there's a rat, be careful of it, you're going to grab the cookbook, which gives you the recipe for blood grease. which is going to be really important for killing the Godskin Noble, so make sure you grab that. And then if you head up the steps and climb up the ladder, you will come to this tower where there is a chest which contains the left half of the Dectus Medallion, which we're going to need to go up to the Altus Plateau. There's also this knight here. Killing him is optional. He drops an Ash of War called Bloody Slash. It's an alright Ash of War. We're not going to use it in this run, but you can kill him if you want. After that, we're going to go from the Fort Haight Site of Grace. If you head to the west and follow the coast south, you'll see there's a graveyard there. I put a marker on it because I'm not going to loot it in this run, but, you know, you're probably going to want to stop by it and grab the runes from it. But you can follow the coast around as a shortcut to the lower half of Limgrave, and we're going to go up to the Forlorn Hound Evergaol. I had marked a Site of Grace there on the map. So here's the shortcut that we're taking. Just go up the rocks. Across that bridge is the Weeping Peninsula, and there's a golden seed and a bunch of sacred tears over there that you should grab. I didn't do it in this run because it would take another fucking hour if I did, but you should do that. Anyway, so we come over to this Site of Grace. This is called Aghill Lake South. This is a really good spot to farm mushrooms. You probably saw the mushroom that's right next to the Grace, but we're also going to grab this because we need to go to the Evergaol there and kill Bloodhound Knight Darriwil. Before we do that, we're going to go back to Kale, and we're going to ask him about the Howling in the Mistwood. So he'll give you a gesture called the Finger Snap. If you don't know, you can pause the game, and on the right side you have your gestures menu. Hit Y or triangle to swap the gesture, and then you can either hit X to use it from the gesture menu, or you can equip it and use it from the pause menu there. So we need the Finger Snap gesture. We're going to take that back to Blaidd at the Mistwood Ruins. So go underneath the tower, where you see Blaidd and hear him howling, and then just do the Finger Snap. And he will jump down and talk to you. And so he tells you that he's looking for a guy named Bloodhound Knight Darriwil, and he wants to kill him. So Darriwil is in the Evergaol here, and he drops the Bloodhound Fang, which is what we're going to be using for the first part of this run. So to prepare for the Darriwil fight, the first thing we're going to do is use any Sacred Tears and Golden Seeds to upgrade our flasks. Then in the Flask of Wondrous Physick, we're going to equip the Spiked Crack tier and the Strength Knot Crystal tier. In our Ashes of War, you can choose any weapon, it doesn't matter, I just put it on the club because it's the only one I have. We're going to equip the Golden Vow Ash of War. And grab that mushroom. And anyway, so after that, we're going to head south to the Evergaol. It's clearly marked on the map, so just go up the hill toward that. We're also going to craft a bunch of fire pots. So we picked up mushrooms, smoldering butterflies, and we have 5 cracked pots, so we can make 5 fire pots, which will be more than enough for this fight. So enter the Evergaol. And since we talked to Blaidd about Darriwil, you'll see his golden summon sign here. So I actually am going to summon him for this fight because he'll do most of the work for us. Darriwil's not all that hard, but, it's just easier to summon Blaidd. So cast Golden Vow, which will buff not only you, but also Blaidd if he's next to you. And then you're going to drink your Wondrous Physick. You should do it before you leave the circle, so you don't have to do it while Darriwil is spawning in. And then you're essentially just going to stay at range. Let Blaidd keep Darriwil's aggro, and you're going to throw fire pots at him. And as you saw, it took off like a 1/6 of his health or whatever, so he's pretty weak, and these things do pretty good damage. And Blaidd will also repeatedly stance break him, because Blaidd does a fuckload of poise damage, because his sword is a colossal sword, and when you kill Darriwil, he will drop the Bloodhound's Fang, which we're going to be using for killing Margaret and Godrick. After you leave the Evergaol, automatically, you'll see Blaidd standing there, so go talk to him, and he'll give you a Somber Stone 2, which we're going to use to upgrade the Bloodhound Fang, in addition to that Somber Stone 1 that we picked up in Stormhill earlier. So go back to the Church of Elleh, go to the smithing table, and you can upgrade the Bloodhound's Fang. Should only cost like 1,000 runes or so. It's actually almost 2,000. But yeah, so bring that bad boy up to +2. So the Bloodhound Fang is a somber weapon, so a +2 Bloodhound Fang is equivalent to like a +6 regular weapon, so it's going to be pretty strong for Limgrave. After that, we're going to head back to the Third Church of Marika, and in the pond to the northeast of it, there is a teleporter which will take us to the Bestial Sanctum in the Dragon Barrow. So this is pretty far away from Limgrave, so we're also in a pretty high-level area, so be careful not to get murdered by the enemies here. Anyway, we're going to head directly south toward the Minor Erd Tree in the Dragon Barrow. It's pretty much the only thing you can see from here, so it should be pretty easy to navigate your way to. Along the way, you're going to cross this huge bridge with a dragon on it. make sure you grab that Grace there. I always just run past the dragon, so I never grab the Grace. If he's facing toward you, then he'll do this scream when you come up to him, and you can run underneath him during that time, and it's very unlikely that he'll hit you. But, you know, grab the Grace just to be safe. And then when you go to the Minor Erdtree, go around behind it and take the Spirit Spring to jump up the cliff, and that will take us to Fort Faroth. So we're going to grab the Grace at Fort Faroth, because we're going to need to come back here later. And inside the fort, again, these are pretty high-level enemies, so if they hit you, you'll probably die. But you can just run past those bats really easily, and they can't follow you up the ladder. There's the right half of the Dectus Medallion, which we're going to need to go up to Altus later. And then you see there's that hole with a ladder in it over there. We're going to go to that and drop down into that hole to grab a couple more items. So when you drop down into it, there's a ambush rat on your left, so be careful not to get murdered by that. Grab the golden rune and then jump across to this other area here. Be careful of the other 2 rats. Drop down the hole and grab Radagon's Sword Seal, which we're going to use to meet the requirements for the Bloodhound Fang and the Axe of Godrick in the early parts of this run. I managed to lose their aggro, so I was able to fast travel back to the site of Grace. If you die, you'll just respawn at the Grace anyway, so it's not a huge deal. Radagon's Sword Seal is a talisman that increases your vigor, endurance, strength, and dexterity by 5 points while you have it equipped, at the cost of making you take more damage. At low levels, like if you have less than about 35 vigor, then it's worth using. So we're going to use it in this run for the sake of being able to wield the Bloodhound's Fang to kill Margit and Godrick. So I rested at the Grace, and once you rest at a Grace outside of Limgrave, Melina will offer to take you to the Round Table Hold. I didn't go yet. We're going to level up a few times here first. So I used a golden rune so that I could level up my dex to 12 and my strength to 13. So like I said, Radagon's Sword Seal increases strength, dex, vigor, and endurance by 5 points each. So if we have 13 strength and 12 dex, then with Radagon's Sword Seal equipped, we'll have 18 strength and 17 dex, meaning that we can use the Bloodhound's Fang. Obviously, if you have a different class, then you might have different stats, and you might need to put different amounts of points into those things, but we're about to get a bunch of runes here anyway. So equip the Bloodhound's Fang, make a bunch of blood grease, and put that in your quick item slot, and then we're going to go over to the giant dragon Grail here. Apply blood grease to the Fang. This adds 30 bleed buildup to your weapon. The Fang does 55 bleed buildup by default, so we're doing a total of 85 per hit. Grail has a fuckload of health, but when you proc a bleed, it takes off a percentage of the boss's max health. So, using the bleeds from the Bloodhound's Fang, we can kill her relatively quickly. It'll take a few minutes of swinging at her, but just keep doing it. And when she dies, she drops 75,000 runes, or 74,638, whatever. About 75,000 runes. So we're going to use those to level up some more. I decided to just get the stats for the Axe of Godrick while we're here. So I'm going to bring my strength up to 18 and dex up to 17. So the Axe of Godrick requires 34 strength and 22 dex. When you two-hand a weapon, that increases your strength by an effective 50%. So it only requires we have 23 strength. So since Radagon's Sword Seal gives us plus 5 to strength and dex, we need 18 plus 5 equals 23 strength, and 17 plus 5 equals 22 dex. So I decided to get those stats here, and then I dumped all the rest of my points into Vigor so that we can survive a few hits from the bosses that we're going to be fighting. Vigor is a very important stat on every character. Make sure you level up Vigor. You want to get 40 Vigor pretty much as soon as possible, honestly. Up next, we're going back to the Aghill Lake north side of Grace for the last part of our setup. We're going to head north to the ruin in the ravine that I marked there. So there's a site of Grace here you can grab. This is also an okay spot to farm mushrooms early on, but there's better spots to farm mushrooms. I'm not even going to talk about it. But next to the site of Grace, if we come over to the edge here, if you come to the edge of the ruin here, it's just long enough that you'll take a little bit of damage. So, make sure you're at full health, but there's a Grace there, so it doesn't matter. And then we're going to head south through the ravine toward Murkwater Cave. So we're going to get invaded here by an NPC named Bloodyfinger Nereus. So we're going to get ready to fight him. So, drink your Wondrous Physick, cast Golden Vow, and then on the Bloodhound's Fang, you may or may not want to use Blood Grease. We need at least 1 Blood Grease for Margit and 1 Blood Grease for Godrick, so if you don't have enough, then I wouldn't recommend using it. You can farm Bloodroses from the bushes at Fort Haight, but it takes a little while to do, so, I recommend just being conservative with your Blood Grease. Also, a Euro will spawn in to help you, so you shouldn't have trouble with Nereus. And then after that, we can head inside Murkwater Cave, grab the Site of Grace, because we're going to need to fast travel this in a second. Inside the cave, if you make a right, you will come into the boss room, open up the chest, grab the clothes out of it so that you can make yourself decent, and you will be attacked by Patches, the NPC. So you don't want to kill Patches, considering that we have a pretty strong weapon and it does bleed. It might be fairly easy to accidentally kill him, so be careful. You're going to see here, I managed to proc a bleed on him, and he came pretty fucking close to dying. I don't think you can kill him in one hit, but just be careful not to mash the attack button on him and accidentally kill him, because you don't want to kill him. But anyway, so afterwards you're going to talk to him, and he tells you come back later, and I'll sell you some shit. So we're going to fast travel to the Murkwater Cave Grace, and when we come back into the room, he will be ready to sell us some stuff. So we're going to need 5,000 runes so that we can purchase Margit's Shackle, which we're going to use to make killing Margit super easy. I had the runes to just buy it outright, but if you need to, you can sell some golden runes to him, which is why we picked him up, so we don't have to go and fight shit for runes. Margit's Shackle is really useful. It's an item you can use from your tools inventory, so you can put it on your quick item slots. When you activate it, your guy does this animation, and it'll knock Margit to the ground for a couple seconds. So that's going to make killing him super easy. After that, we're going to go to the Castle Ward Tunnel at Stormvale Castle. You can see on the map how we got there from the Stormhill Shack. And we are going to prepare to fight Margit. So again, in the Wondrous Physick, we've got the Spike Crack tier and the Strength Knot Crystal tier. For our Ashes of War, we have any weapon with the Golden Vow Ash of War on it. We have the Bloodhound's Fang +2. Make sure you have the requirements to wield it, and also make sure you have a good amount of vigor. We have equipped our weapon with Golden Vow, whatever armor you want to wear, Radagon's Sword Seal. So since I leveled up my stats to 18 and 17 base, I don't actually need the Sword Seal to be able to wield the Bloodhound's Fang, so I put on the Axe Talisman instead, so that I can still wield the Bloodhound's Fang and get the charge attack bonus. We're also going to need some blood grease. I strongly recommend to use throwing daggers, which you're going to see I use them to good effect. Throwing daggers are really nice. And you're going to need Margit's Shackle. And then I like to put the blood grease on one of my pouch slots so that I don't have to cycle through it on my quick item slots when I'm fighting. So you can just put it there and then just press like triangle and to the right or whatever to use it. You can summon Rogier or some Spirit Ashes if you want. I'm not going to do it for this fight. There's also multiplayer, of course. The first time you fight Margit, there won't be a fog wall, but if if you have to do this fight multiple times, you can just buff outside the fog wall and then walk into the boss room. It'll be fine. But anyway, so drink your Physick, cast Golden Vow, put blood grease on the Bloodhound's Fang, and walk forward to spawn Margit. Immediately hit him with the Shackle, and then you're not going to use the Ash of War. You're going to want to do charged heavy attacks. So hit him with 2 of those, get ready to dodge. I fucked up, but doesn't matter. You can use the Shackle again, so you can only use the Shackle twice, and only in Margit's first phase. So he goes to phase 2 when he gets to like 60% health, so keep that in mind. But anyway, he'll jump away from you, so be prepared to dodge his slam attack. You saw I was hitting him with throwing daggers, and it was doing some pretty good damage, so they're good. They're better than you might think. And you see, I'm getting hit, but since I have a decent amount of vigor, I'm not dying immediately. So it's really important that you level up vigor. It doesn't matter what your class is, what your build is, whatever. You need vigor so the bosses don't fucking kill you in one hit. Anyway, so after we kill Margit, we're going to go into Stormvale. Margit drops a bunch of runes, so I use them to level up my vigor some more. Vigor is very important. Make sure you do that. Also, for the sake of this guide, I cut out me running through Stormvale Castle because it would take forever to include in the guide. And also, Stormvale's fun. Explore it for yourself. There's a lot of cool shit. There's a lot of good stuff to find. It's a very fun dungeon. Anyway, so Godrick is at the end of it on the northeast corner of Stormvale, so that's his boss room. Before we go in there, I'm going to head back down this alley here, and there's a Trina's Lily next to the tree, and there's also, of course, a Golden Seed, which I managed to miss my first time. And then there's a little room to the side here, and this has Nepheli in it. So she's optional, but if you talk to her a couple times, then you'll unlock the ability to summon her for the Godrick fight. And so if you want to use a summon, she's really strong. She can pretty much solo him, I think. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, she's really strong. She'll help you out. And also, we're going to head up through this other door here, and we're going to grab the 2 cracked pots that are here, so we can have enough sleep pots later for the Godskin Noble. 5 was probably enough for the Noble, but, it's nice to have extras. So anyway, with Godrick, it's the same shit as Margit. Drink your Physick, summon Nepheli if you want to. You can affect her with Golden Vow, so keep that in mind. And then you're going to switch to the Fang, apply blood grease to it, and then walk into the boss door. Obviously, we can't use Margit's Shackle on Godrick. It's only for Margit, but, you know, still. And also, since we got that Talisman pouch from killing Margit, I have both the Axe Talisman and Radagon Sword Seal equipped. And then there's really not that many tricks to fighting Godrick, except for, you know, just have an upgraded weapon so you do decent damage. He's pretty simple, so, you know, I'm not even going to bother to give, like, a how to kill him easily guide, you know, just dodge his hits and then hit him with a fucking charge R2. Some of his attacks are, like, combos, so you gotta watch out for those. But for the most part, like, he's really easy. Once you get him down to half health, he'll cut off his arm and go to phase 2. So I like to hit him with a bunch of light attacks to build bleed build up on him. And then once the cutscene is done, he'll have, you know, very low health because we bled him, and also very low poise, so that you can hit him with the charge attack and immediately fucking murder him. Yeah, so Godrick is pretty easy. Like I said, you know, just dodge, hit, dodge, hit. He's pretty simple. Here's my build if you want to, you know, make sure you have the right build. So after killing him, we will get Godrick's Great Rune, which I'm not going to activate in this run, but I'll show you where to get it. Then we get the Remembrance of the Grafted, so that we can use that to get Godrick's Axe. So to activate Godrick's Great Rune, you have to go to this big tower thing here on this bridge on the east side of Stormhill Castle. There's a teleporter at the end of the first segment of the bridge, and it takes you to the Divine Tower. You can see in your key items inventory the Great Rune is grayed out. You have to go to the Divine Tower and activate it before you can use that. A lot of people don't realize that that's what they have to do, so that's why I'm pointing it out. Anyway, before we go to the Round Table Hold, I went out through Godrick's throne room, and I took the shortcut, the back exit out to Liurnia. We're going to grab the Site of Grace that's right here, and then I'm going to talk to Melina and go to the Round Table Hold. From where you spawn in at the Round Table Hold, just immediately go to your right up the door, and you can talk to Elleh here. So there's two reasons we need to talk to Elleh. First of all, talking to her at all is necessary for Vare's questline, which is how we're going to get the axe up to +10. And second of all, if you talk to her again, you can redeem the Remembrance of the Grafted for the Axe of Godrick. And so now we have the Axe of Godrick. With Radagon Sword Seal, we also have the stats required to wield it if you two-hand it, so that's good. So, now we're going to talk about upgrading this bad boy to +10. I'm going to run through it kind of quick here, because I don't want this video to be an hour and a half long, but if you want a more comprehensive guide about how to do it, I have a dedicated video to getting any Somber weapon up to +10 easily, so check that out. To get it up to +10, we're going to need to head up through Liurnia toward the Altus Plateau and the Volcano Manor. So the first thing we're going to do is grab the map for Liurnia. From the lake-facing cliff Site of Grace, follow the road to the west and then north. You'll come across this merchant once you get down to the lake, so talk to him and buy the lantern for 1800 runes. We're going to need this for a couple dark areas we're going to go to later on. And then if you keep heading north, you'll grab the map. Try not to get murdered by the Wraithcallers there. Follow the road a bit further north and you'll come to the Lasgar Ruins Site of Grace. So since you picked up the map, you can see right here on the corner of where the next empty area is, there's a little island there. So we're going to go to that. It's called the Scenic Isle, and it has a Site of Grace on it, and we're going to go to it a couple times. So run up to it. You'll meet Patches here, since we talked to him in Murkwater Cave. You can buy fan daggers from him, so that's kind of important. I didn't do it here, but you should buy fan daggers because they're really good. And then just to the east of it, you can see there's a gazebo over there, where we're going to go and talk to Raya, so that we can do her quest. So talk to Raya. She will ask you to get her necklace back from a thug that stole it from her down the road. So the house down the road is not down the road at all. Instead, it's north of the Scenic Isle and then to the west a little bit. You can actually see it from the Scenic Isle Site of Grace, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. It's a big clearing. You can see like directly behind me. That's the Scenic Isle right there. Yeah, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. Just straight northwest of the Scenic Isle. Go to the Boil Prawn Shack. The thug guy is there. Before we talk to him, we're going to come to this tree over here and grab 3 Trina's Lillies, just to make sure we have enough for the Godskin Noble. You're going to want to talk to this guy, tell him give me the necklace, and then deal. and he will sell it to you for 1,000 runes. You can also kill him, but I kind of strongly recommend you don't kill him because he sells some good stuff later on. And then from here, we're also going to head north east to the Academy Gate Town and grab the second map for Liurnia before we go back to Raya. So grab that, and there's also the Academy Gate Town Site of Grace here, which we're going to need to come back to later, so make sure you grab that. In case you need a point of reference, here's all the places we've been to. And then from here, before we go back to Raya, we're going to head to these 3 ruins. The one all the way on the left has a site of grace called Fallen Ruins of the Lake, and we're going to need to come here because this is the closest site of grace to Vare at the Rose Church, and we're going to need to do Vare's quest, so that's important to have. And in fact, while we're here, we're going to run over to the Rose Church and talk to Vare so that we can get started on his stuff at the same time instead of having to run back and forth. So go talk to him. Since we talked to Elleh, he will offer us the 5 Festering Bloody Fingers, so you can either use these to invade 3 people, or there's an NPC that we can go kill in the Altus Plateau, which is what we're going to do, and you can do that even if you don't have the ability to play online. Anyway, so now we go back to the Scenic Isle and talk to Raya, give her the necklace, and she will give you the Volcano Manor invitation, which is going to be very important for getting to the Volcano Manor, of course. And now we're going to head back to the Academy Gate Town Site of Grace, and you see to the northwest of it, there's a gazebo in the middle of the lake. We're going to go to that because there's a teleporter here that will take us up to the West Liurnia map next to King's Realm Ruins. So grab that map, and then if you look on your map, you'll see that we've traveled a pretty significant distance, so it's just a nice shortcut to take. So just to the southwest of this, there's a site of grace here. I'm going to show you it, but I'm not going to grab it. Obviously, you should grab it. And before we go into the King's Realm Ruins, we're going to go down to the lake, and there's a bunch of balloons that we can pop for some free golden runes, which I'll show you in a second. So here's that grace. Make sure you grab that. But yeah, so once you go down to the lake, there are these balloons. If you throw throwing daggers at them, they will pop, and it gives you a golden rune 6. So I think there's like 6 or 7 balloons here. They don't respawn, so you can only get those runes once, but like I said, we need about 20,000 runes worth of golden runes, so make sure you get that shit. Anyway, after that, we're heading up through the King's Realm Ruins. At the north end of it, there's an illusory wall, so just smack that bad boy and it'll disappear. Grab the grace, and we will talk to the troll blacksmith Iji. He sells Somber Stones 1 through 4, so this will cost 15,000 runes to buy 1 of each, so that's what we're going to do. But in case you don't want to spend the 6,000 runes for the Somber Stone 4, you can go down the cliff to the lake level, and if you come to this little island thing here, there's a Somber Stone 4 on that you can grab for free. So that'll save you 6,000 runes. But I didn't feel like doing that, so I just used a bunch of golden runes from my inventory to make sure I have at least 20,000 of them. I say 20,000 because it's 15,000 for the Somber Stones to upgrade the Axe of Godrick, and then it'll cost about 5,000 more to actually upgrade the Axe of Godrick to +4. So that's what I did. And so now we have the Axe of Godrick at +4, and it'll be strong enough for us to do the next couple steps of this. So the next step, in fact, is to follow the road up north to Carrier Manor. We're not actually going to go inside Carrier Manor, but there's a grace there. Obviously, you should explore it on your own time, but that's not part of this guide. And then to the east of it, you'll see that there's this rock bridge that goes across the ravine. So we're going to take that, and if you jump off the end of it, you can follow the hill up to this church called the Bellum Church, where there's a site of grace and a sacred tier. And then we're going to follow the cliff, not the road, we're going to follow the cliff up to the Grand Lift of Dectus there. If you go on the road, then you'll get shot at by trebuchets, and that's bad, so you want to follow the edge of the cliff. So I skipped running past Carrier Manor, but you know, you just run up to it and then go to the right. Jump across the rock bridge. You won't take fall damage here, at least not if you land on these rocks down here. And then if you just make another right and go up the hill, that takes you to the Bellum Church. Make sure you grab that site of grace in case you die to the trebuchets. There's also a sacred tier at the base of the Radagon statue, so make sure you grab that. And then, like I said, instead of following the road on the highway, we're going to come and follow the edge of the cliff here so that the trebuchets don't shoot at us. And then once you get up to, you know, that rocky thing there, you can just go around it and you're past the trebuchets, so they can't shoot you. And then you just got to run up to the Grand Lift of Dectus, grab the site of grace, because we're going to be coming back here in a minute. before we go up to Altus, we're going to do one more bit of setup down here. So if you head south, you'll see there's this ridge here, this line thing. There's 2 paths that lead up where we want to go, and we want to take the one on the right. So you can see I'm marking it here so we can see it more clearly. There's a tower at the top of the hill there. That's the Frenzy Flaming Tower, and we need to kill the bad guys there to turn it off. So you can see I'm running up, and if you pay attention to the top right, you'll see that the Frenzy Flame Tower is causing my health to go down, and it's also causing madness buildup. So stay close to the cliff wall there so that you don't, get madness from the fucking Frenzy Flame Tower. But you can see it activates in intervals. So wait at the Spirit Spring until it turns off. Once it turns off, you can jump up the Spirit Spring and land on the little wall next to the tower, and then you can just jump around. There's giant rats at the bottom of this, so you want to jump to the ladder instead of trying to fight the rats because they do madness build up and they're really strong for some reason. And we're going to need some fire pots, so if you stand on top of this chest, you can aim at the ceiling, and if you throw fire pots up there, you can kill the 6 guys through the floor with the fire pots. Once all 6 dudes are dead, and I saw their health bars, so I know I got all 6 of them, climb up to make sure they're dead. And now the tower is deactivated permanently. These guys don't respawn, and the tower will never turn on again, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. After that, if you see this little S-looking thing here, there's a site of grace right next to it, so we're going to go grab that. It's kind of important to grab this grace because there's going to be an invader here that might kill you, though you can run past him like you're going to see me do, so it's not like super important, but make sure you get the grace. It might be a little hard to find, but make sure you get it. Anyway, so we're going to run west through the Frenzy Flame Village, and we're going to head up to the Church of Inhibition at the top of the hill. So as you're running up to the church, you'll get kicked off of Torrent, and you'll see that we get invaded by Festering Fingerprint Vike. So if you just sprint past him, you can go into the church and activate the Site of Grace. Killing Vike isn't necessary for this run, but now if he kills you, then you will just respawn right here at the Site of Grace because you activated it. And as you're about to see, it's a good thing that we grabbed it, because he's about to kick my ass, because I'm an idiot. But, doesn't matter, we spawn right here, and we are going to need to come back here later. You don't have to grab these clothes right now, but I just did, because we're going to need to come back to this maiden in a little bit for Vari's quest. After that, we are heading back to the Grand Lift of Dectus, and we're going to use the Dectus Medallion to take it up to the Altus Plateau. So since we did Raya's questline, she'll be here to meet you, and if you talk to her, she will take you straight to the Volcano Manor. But we're not going to talk to her yet. Instead, we're going to come to these rocks to the north over here, and we're going to grab the Altus Plateau Site of Grace, because we're going to need to do some stuff here in the Altus Plateau. Now, again, we don't have the map yet, but here it is, just in case you need a point of reference. Anyway, go back and talk to her, and she will take you to Volcano Manor. She also turned me into a femboy, unfortunately, but, you gotta play with the hand that you're dealt, right? Anyway, so grab the grace, talk to Tanith, and she will give you the drawing room key. You're going to use that to take the first door on the right in the hallway. That takes you into this little room. This is where we need the lantern for. This wall in the corner here is an illusory wall, and you can get rid of it just by walking into it. So go through the sex dungeon, go past the Bloodhound Knight. You can kill him if you want, but I didn't bother to because we don't need to. Grab the Prison Town Church Site of Grace, and once you go through the door, you'll see the Temple of Elleh, which is where we need to go. So I'm going to take a shortcut through the Prison Town. You immediately jump down to this little roof that you see here, and then you can drop down to this cliff, and then drop down to the roof of the building that has somehow not melted from the lava. I guess it's made out of brick, so it makes kind of sense. We're going to jump into the lava. Now, it slows you down and does damage to you over time. But if you roll through it, you can move slightly faster, so just keep an eye on your health, drink health potions as needed. So once we come to these stairs, we're going to need to go up the stairs to get to the temple, but before we do that, we're going to come around the side over here, and we're going to come around the corner of this building and go up onto the roof, where we're going to grab a Somber Stone 6, which we're going to use on the Axe of Godrick in a second. After that, we're going to go up the stairs, up the ramp, whatever, and onto this elevator. That man-serpent there has a whip, and he will kick your ass, so be careful of him. He was merciful to me, so yeah, probably because I'm a femboy. But if you take the elevator up, that brings you to the temple. Instead of going straight up to the temple, we're going to make another right, and we're going to come around the side here and grab the Somber Stone 5. So now we have Somber Stones 5 and 6 for the axe. and then we're going to go past the temple to the bridge, activate the lever, and that will raise the bridge, and now you have a shortcut that takes you back to the prison town church. And so now we need to prepare to fight the Godskin Noble, so we're going to upgrade the Axe of Godrick to +6. So again, we have Resin on Sword Seal, so we can two-hand it to wield it, and it's going to do a fuckload of damage because it's +6. We don't need fire pots, and here's a pro tip. Instead of like throwing them to get rid of them, just unequip them from your quick item slot, and if you go to sort chest at a grace, you can actually store fire pots, or any throwing pots for that matter, and that'll free up the cracked pots so that you can use them to craft more stuff. Anyway, so make sure you use any golden seeds and sacred tears you have to upgrade your flasks. We're going to go to our Physick, make sure we have the spiked crack tier and the strength knot crystal tier, so we can do a fuckload of damage to the Godskin Noble. You need any weapon with golden vow on it, so in my case I'm using the club that I started the game with. We need the Axe of Godrick +6, because it's our highest upgraded weapon, and we're going to use it to kick his ass. We've got any weapon with golden vow, we've got whatever armor you want, or in my case, my sissy hypno femboy clothes. We've got the axe talisman and the Resin Sword Seal, so that we can meet the requirements for the Axe of Godrick, and we're going to craft a bunch of sleep pots and equip them into our quick item slot. So like with Margit earlier, the first time you fight him, you can go a little ways into the boss arena, and there's no fog wall. If you die and come back, then the fog wall will be there, so you just have to buff outside the fog wall, it's fine. Anyway, so drink your Wondrous Physick, cast Golden Vow. You should probably drink a blue flask, but I didn't have like more than one, so I didn't. It was fine. Once you spawn in the Noble, you're going to immediately hit him with a sleep pot and wait for him to fall asleep. Then use the Axe of Godrick and hit him with 3 charged heavy attacks. Then hit him with a riposte. Now he's already at half health, so he'll go to phase 2. While he's waking up, you can immediately hit him with another sleep pot, and that'll prevent him from doing any attacks after he does his phase transition. And then it's another 3 charge heavy attacks. That'll break his stance, and you get the riposte. And congratulations, he is dead. So there you go. Here's my build. Axe of Godrick +6. You know, as long as you have the sleep pots, it's fine. We had the extra ones just in case. You know, in case you mess up, you need another try or something. Anyway, so you're going to grab the Temple of Elleh Site of Grace, and to the right of it, there's an elevator that'll take us further into Volcano Manor. Like I said before, we're going to need 2 Stone Sword keys. We already picked up one earlier, so make sure you have at least 1 Stone Sword key. Now, I'm just going to run through this section of Volcano Manor until we get to the spot where the key is. Be careful not to get owned by that Abductor Virgin there. So, once you come to this bridge hallway thing here, if you go to the side of the bridge, you can jump off, and you'll see there's a window here you can go into. So go through the window, and there is a Stone Sword key on the mattress here, so grab that. So, again, we need a total of 2 Stone Sword keys. That was the second one. Make sure you have 2, or else you're going to have to run all the way through this shit again after you grab the second one. And then, you know, you can just run past the Man Serpent. It's not hard. Go up the stairs behind you, and you will open the Imp statue here using 2 Stone Sword keys. This is another really dark area, so we're going to use the lantern, and then you can just jump down these cages here in this bigger sex dungeon than the one from before. Jump down the cages, jump onto the rafter. This is a slightly tricky jump, but it's not too hard. Be careful of the Albinaric mage across the way there. He did a pretty good amount of damage to me, surprisingly, actually. But yeah. And then you'll see at the ground level, there's another cage that you can drop down onto, so drop down to that. We're going to face west and go through the west way. There's an Ash of War to the east, but for the Somber Stone, we're going to go to the west. Don't get grabbed by the Albinarics. That shit almost killed me. I was very surprised to survive that. But run past them, run past the Abductor Virgin, and grab the Somber Stone 7. After that, we're going to head back to the Altus Plateau Site of Grace, and if you follow the road, you'll see that there's like a fork in the road. So there's an east fork and a north fork. We're going to follow the north fork up to where the map is. So you'll see it as you come to it. There's your map. Grab that bad boy so that we can see what we're doing over here. And we are going to take a shortcut over to the Writhe-Blood Ruins to our north. So, from where the map is, if you drop down to this area, there's a couple drops, but you can pretty safely go down them. There's a Spirit Spring on that second waypoint that I just marked there. That'll take you up to this road, and then from there it's just a straight run over to the Writhed Ruins, which is the third waypoint that I marked there. So I skipped all that running. It's a short run. Go to the Writhed Ruins, be careful of the dogs here, don't die to them, and you will see there is a invasion sign which you can use to invade Magnus the Beastclaw. So you don't actually have to kill him. You can just die to him 3 times if you want, and that'll count as killing him for Vari's questline, because Vari just wants you to use 3 bloody fingers. So yeah, but in my case, I just killed him because I have a pretty strong axe, so why not? And then I decided before we go back to Vare, we're going to instead go over to Fort Faroth and the Dragon Barrow. If you head to the west, you'll see the map, so we need to go to the map. We're going to the base of the Divine Tower there, so you can use that as a landmark to see where you're going. Grab the map, and then just north of the map, you'll see there's this root with a scarab on it, so we're going to kill this thing. Don't let it run off the cliff. In my other videos, you'll see I have trouble with that. Don't let it run off the cliff. When it dies, it explodes, so don't get killed by that, and it drops a Somber Stone 8. And then if you head to the southeast, you can take this lower path down, and in this circle of chairs here, there is a Somber Stone 9. So now we can bring the Axe of Godrick up to +9. We're also going to go back to Vare, talk to him about using the Festering Bloody Fingers, and he will give you the Lord of Blood's Lord of Blood's Favor, and we're going to take that up to the Church of Inhibition, and if we interact with that dead maiden, we can dye the cloth with her blood. So now we have the bloody Lord of Blood's maxi pad, and we're going to bring that back to Vare, talk to him again, and he will give you the bloody finger, talk to him again, and he will give you the Pure Blood Knight's Medal. From your inventory, you could use the Pure Blood Knight's Medal, so do that, use it, and it will teleport us over to Mohgwyn Palace. So, again, pretty high level area. Be careful not to get owned by anything here. You're going to go up the stairs, grab the map, obviously, and there's a Site of Grace here, and pretty much just a fuckload of stairs you need to run up, so I just cut that all out. Once you get to the top of it, you'll be at the Dynasty Mausoleum midpoint, so grab that Grace, and then we're going to go over here to where there is a Sanguine Noble and an audience of Blood Albinaurics. If you come on the side here, line your head up with that middle pillar that you see off in the distance, and if you throw a throwing dagger, it'll hit the lower pillar next to the Sanguine Noble, and the sound will distract him, so you can run up, open the chest, and grab the Somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone, which we can use to bring the Axe of Godrick up to +10. And then I just fast traveled out of there, and I went to Hugh, and I upgraded that shit to +10. Hooray. So that took me less than 2 hours to do, as you're going to see in a second. So yeah, if you know where you're going, it's pretty quick. And now you have +10 weapon that you can use for your entire game. So the Axe of Godrick is in kind of a weird spot, where it's neither super strong nor super weak. It's a fun weapon to use, I'll tell you that. I messed around with it a lot for this video, and I had a lot of fun with it. The Ash of War in particular, it's not great against bosses, but when you're facing like crowds of small bad guys, it's pretty good. So we're going to talk about the builds for this that I set up. So I set up builds for this thing at level 60, 100, and 125. So here we are at level 60. For the weapons that we have equipped, I've got the Axe of Godrick, because that's what we're using. I've got a dagger with Golden Vow on it. I use a dagger because it's really light and you can just get a ton of them really easily, so it's not like an investment of a weapon to get. I've got the Dragon Communion Seal. You can get any seal that you want. I just went with this one because it's easy to get and it is weightless, so we don't have to worry about equip load with it. For talismans, at level 60, I have Radagon's Source Seal and the Two Fingers Heirloom equipped. Radagon's Source Seal gives us +5 to our physical stats, and the Two Fingers Heirloom gives us +5 to Faith. So I'm assuming you have at least 10 Faith, because we're going to be using the spell Flame Grant Me Strength, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then for the other two talismans, these won't change as we level up. I've got the Claw Talisman for increased jump attack damage, because the Axe of Godrick gets some pretty good jump attacks, and I've got the Axe Talisman for increased charge attack damage, which, as we've seen, are just great in general. For armor, I went with the Knight set because it's easy to get, it's relatively light for the protection it gives you, and it also gives you 51 poise, which is nice in PvE. You'll see I have a spell equipped. That is the incantation Flame Grant Me Strength. It requires 15 faith to cast, so like I said, that's why we're using the Two Fingers Heirloom. It increases your physical damage by 20% for 30 seconds, and it also increases your stamina regen by like 11% for 30 seconds. So that's a really good buff, and it stacks with Golden Vow, so it's great to have. In our Wondrous Physick, I've got the Opaline Hard tier for extra damage negation, and I've got the Spiked Crack tier for extra charge attack damage, which also stacks with the Axe Talisman, so that's really good. So since we're using Radagon's Soreseal, I decided to bring Vigor up to 35, which means with the Soreseal, we'll have a total of 40 Vigor, which is the first soft cap, and is the level of Vigor you want to aim for on any character. Doesn't matter what the character is, doesn't matter if it's a melee guy, a mage guy, whatever, you want at least 40 Vigor. So 40 Vigor is good to have. I went with 13 Endurance, so with Radagon's Soreseal on, that brings us up to a total of 18 Endurance, and so that gives us the equip load to wield all the weapons, armor, and talismans that we've got right now, and remain in medium load, which is really important, obviously. So we've got 13 Endurance, I've got 34 Strength. I assume we're going to be two-handing the Axe of Godrick. It gets a C scaling in Strength and a C scaling in Dex, but the Strength scaling is actually slightly higher than the Dex scaling, so it's important to prioritize Strength first, and if we're two-handing it, that increases our effective Strength by 50%, so 50% of 34 is 17, 17 plus 34 equals 51, so if we two-hand it, it's like we have 51 Strength, which is very good. We don't need much more Strength beyond that, but we will be leveling up Strength as we go up. I also have 17 Dex, with the Soreseal on, that brings us up to 22, so that we can meet the requirement for the Axe of Godrick. And I've got 10 Faith, so that with the Two Fingers Heirloom equipped, we have 15 Faith, which allows us to cast Flame Grant Me Strength. Now, you don't have to keep the Two Fingers Heirloom equipped at all times. You can equip it, cast Flame Grant Me Strength, and then switch it to something else if you want. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to assume you keep it equipped at all times, which is fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. So between the two buffs, which are Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, plus the buffs we get from the Axe Talisman and the Claw Talisman, plus the buff we get from the Spiked Crack tier and the Wondrous Physick, we're going to be doing a shitload of damage. You'll see that in this screenshot, I have the upgrade level set to +5. So it says upgrade 12, but on the right of that, you can see in blue it says +5. That's what it is as a Somber weapon. So, you know, that's just where I assume your weapon upgrade level would be at level 60. Obviously, if you followed this guide, you'll have this bad boy at +10, so you'll be doing way more damage than what you see here on the screen. But, you know, these are what to expect as you level up just in general for your character, assuming you don't go and get a +10 weapon as quickly as possible. So now we're looking at the level 100 version of the build. So you'll see I took off Radagon's Soreseal and I replaced that with the Shard of Alexander. Around level 100, you would generally expect to be at Crumbling Far Missoula, so you should have access to the Shard of Alexander. If not, then I would recommend something like the Dragon Crest Shield or Dragon Crest Great Shield if you can get it. Maybe something like the Green Turtle Talisman if you're finding that you need more stamina regen. There's a bunch of good options. But Shard of Alexander is really good because of the Ash of War in particular for doing crowd control against groups of small enemies. We also have the Ritual Sword Talisman. Ritual Sword Talisman increases the damage you do by 10% when you are at max health. So it's really good for opening up fights. You generally want to try to stay at max health as possible. Again, there's good options to swap out if you don't want that one. You could also get the Ritual Shield Talisman, for example, which increases your damage negation by, I think, 50% or like 45% or something like that while you're at full health. So the first hit you take from an enemy doesn't fucking one-shot you, you know, which is kind of important. But yeah, so those are my two recommendations. Other than that, the build is pretty much the same in terms of what we have equipped. When it comes to our stats, I brought Vigor up to 40, so we don't need Radagon's Soreseal. I brought Endurance up to 18, again, so we don't need the Soreseal. I brought Strength up to 46, so while two-handing it, we have a total of 69 Strength, very nice. So that puts us well beyond, like, the first break point for the Axe of Godrick. So we don't need to continue putting points into Strength. So I leveled up Dex a bunch. I brought it up to 30 because we're now getting more value for each point of Dex than we are for each point of Strength, because Axe of Godrick has a breakpoint for Strength around like 60 or something like that. So it's now more valuable to put points into Dex. So I brought that up to 30, and I brought Faith up to 15 just so we don't have to worry about the Two Fingers Heirloom. If you want, you can keep using the Two Fingers Heirloom to cast Flame Grant Me Strength. I just like not having to worry about swapping out my talismans and stuff like that. Other than that, the build is exactly the same. If you want, I don't really recommend it, but if you want, you can take like 3 or 4 points out of strength and put them into endurance if you want to wear some heavier armor, but it's really not going to do all that much for you. Armor really isn't as important as you might think in this game, but you know, other than that, build's pretty much exactly the same. And then finally, here we are going up to level 125. Our equipped weapons, armor, and talismans stay all the same, as well as the spell, Flame Grant Me Strength, and the Physick, you know. You can swap them around as you want, you know, experiment with different things, but this is just where I kept it for, you know, the way that I wanted to set up this build. But yeah, so all that stuff remains the same. For our stats, I still have 40 vigor, so I decided to put a few more points into strength and a bunch of points into dexterity. If you want, you can take like 10 points, yeah, maybe like a total of 20 points out of strength and dex to bring vigor up to 60, which is its second soft cap, so that you have a ton of health and you're pretty tanky. But I decided to prioritize doing a little bit more damage instead of being tankier. Either way, you'll be doing plenty of damage with this axe, especially since you have it at plus 10 and we have these buffs going on. But yeah, so I have 40 vigor, still 18 endurance, 53 strength, which gives us a total of 79, so it's just barely not at the strength soft cap, but you know, it's like right there. The strength soft cap is 80. So we're pretty much there when we're two-handing it. And then we have 48 dex, because again, it's getting a lot of value out of putting points into dex versus strength. And finally, we still have 15 faith, so that I can cast Flame Grant Me Strength. Again, you can get rid of that if you want, but I like having it so we don't have to use the Two Fingers Heirloom. So to close out the video, I figured I'd show off some gameplay of me using this build. So first of all, we're going to see here the Ash of War. Very good against crowds of guys. If you hit L2 once, it'll do 2 stomps, and then if you hit it again, you'll do the third one. And so that's really good at taking out crowds of bad guys. Not so great against individual larger bosses. And you'll see here, I chose the Pumpkinhead specifically because I want to show off. You'll see the R1s are doing like an overhead attack, and so that was hitting the Pumpkinhead's Pumpkinhead, you know? This is a good opportunity to show off the R2, because your guy hits low to high with the R2 on the Axe of Godrick. So that was allowing me to hit underneath the Pumpkinhead's Pumpkinhead. So, you know, it's not a completely meaningless thing, and obviously there, you know, if you have a big group of enemies, you can press L2 to get a whole bunch of dopamine real fast. Against bosses, I really don't recommend using the Ash of War. I'm sure you could make it do a bunch of damage if you optimize the build a bit more, but personally, against the bosses that I tested it out against at least, I didn't find much use for it. What I did find use for were the charge attacks and the jumping attacks, which do a good amount of poise damage. Now, you'll see I'm doing a fairly low amount of damage to this Godskin Apostle. That's because in this clip, I believe I have the axe upgraded to only +5. Because like I said before when I was going over the build, you know, I'm going to use it at an appropriate level for different enemies. So this boss is balanced for like a +5 or +6 weapon. So yeah, but obviously, if you follow the guide, you'll have it at +10, and you will fucking shred this guy. But yeah, so talking about poise damage, with a charge R2, it does about 36 poise damage, and with a jumping R2, it does about 24 poise damage. So most enemies have 80 or less poise, so, you know, it only takes 3 or 4 jump attacks to poise break most enemies, you know, or maybe like 2 or 3 if you use charge attacks, which is why I'm getting so many stance breaks on this Godskin Apostle. It's also got relatively good, yeah, I was at +5. It gets relatively good recovery time on a jumping R2, so that makes it good for actually using the jumping R2s. You know, you see a lot of people get like dual colossal weapons, dual colossal swords or whatever, and just spam jump attacks, but they get hit a lot because those things have a really long recovery time. The Great Axe, it's fairly long, but it's not super long, so you can get a lot more use out of it. Here you see I'm fighting this dragon. My idea was that the length of the axe, because it's fairly long, it's apparently the 4th longest Great Axe in the game, so that extra range, you know, I figured would be good to demonstrate using the dragon here, because I'm getting a lot of jump attacks in, and I thought it worked out pretty well. It's not quite as long as I would like, But it definitely works, and it's definitely easier than trying to hit like jump attacks with, you know, a lot of fucking straight swords and stuff like that on this guy. So, you know, I had a good time with it. As you saw, when I got the poise break on it earlier, I had used the Axe of War, and it didn't do all that much damage. I'm pretty confident I would have gotten more damage if I just did the riposte on him instead of the Axe of War, but you're going to see me do it again here in a second. It's fine. If I had refreshed my buffs, it would do a lot more damage. But, again, like I said, for bosses, I really recommend not using the Axe of War, because it's not great against bigger enemies. It's really a thing for crowd control on small guys. It's also good in PvP, but something you need to keep in mind is that it doesn't get... Oh, you see, I fucking, like, teleported there for some reason. But it doesn't get any poise or hyper armor when you do the Axe of War. So that's something to keep an eye out for. That's one of the reasons why I chose the Knight set, because it gets 51 poise, which is, you know, like the bare minimum poise you want to have if you're worried about poise in PvE against the, you know, the computer, against NPCs. So yeah. So no hyper armor on the Axe of War means it's not great against big enemies, but if you have armor with decent poise, then you can use it against small guys pretty effectively, as you saw when I was doing it against the soldiers with their daggers and stuff earlier. And you see here against Loretta, I'm just spanking her with the fucking charge R2s and the jump attacks. Something you should try to keep in mind while you're fighting bosses and stuff is that you want to refresh your buffs as possible. So before, I was doing like 1400 damage with the jump attacks. Now I'm only doing like 1000. So, you know, that's like nearly a 50% drop because Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength wore off. So it's important to try to recast them if you have the opportunity to. But, you know, with decent stats, you're still doing a fuckload of damage no matter what, as you saw. So, you know, just try to keep that in mind, because the buffs really do contribute a lot. And that's not just for this axe, that's for any weapon in the game. Buffs really contribute a lot to your damage. In this clip against Mo, you're going to see I'm going to use Freezing Pots, and I'm going to slaughter him. It's not going to be like an insane amount of damage, but it's going to be some pretty good damage. Watch when I hit the second one, and I hit him with the Frostbite. So he's frostbitten, and then jump attack. And that was like, how much damage was that? Let me go back and look. The jump attack did like 1700 damage, and you saw there I hit him with the charge R2 for like 2300, because like, look at that, that was like 2400 fucking damage on another charge R2, because between Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, which give me a total of I think I want to say it's like a 31% or something like that, because it's like multiplicative. I don't know how these things add together. But yeah, I get a fuckload of extra damage from Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength. Plus, I get Claw Talisman and the Charge Attack Talisman, the Axe Talisman. Plus, I get Spike Crack Tear. Plus, when an enemy is frostbitten, it reduces their damage resistance by 20% until Frostbite wears off. So between all of those things, I was doing a fuckload of damage to Moog just then. And so you're going to see here, I make sure to back off so I can hit him with some more Freezing Pots and give him the Frostbite again. I probably would have been better off just focusing on hitting him, or not hitting him, on casting like Golden Vow or Flame Grant Me Strength, so I could have those buffs back. But, you know, hitting him with the Frostbite is really nice too. It's something to keep in mind. So, Frost Pots are always a good thing to add to your loadout. You could use something like Volcano Pots for extra damage over time. You could throw Poison Pots or get like Poison Mist, Poisonous Spray Mist, to poison enemies for damage over time. You know, all these things that are like side stuff can be integrated into any build. You know, side stuff like consumables and stuff. Something that's not necessarily tied to your stats when it comes to how effective it is, you know, can contribute to any build and do a fuckload of damage. And here you saw I went really risky, and I almost died to the Blood Rain, but I went for the riposte there, so I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so try to keep an eye out for things like that. You'll also see that I switched my gauntlets over to the Briar Gauntlets. That's really nice for getting stance breaks, because the Briar armor makes you do damage when you roll, right? And so even if you're wearing one piece of Briar armor, you'll do like 1 damage, but it also does a very, very, very small amount of poise damage. And so if you roll into an enemy, it prevents their poise from regenerating. because it counts as hitting them. So, you know, if you're fighting an enemy that you need to dodge a lot, especially one like Malenia or something, it's really good to have Briar Armor on, so that if you need to roll away, if you need to roll a combo, if the enemy backs off and you like roll through them in the process or something, it's really good to prevent their poise from regenerating, so you can get stance breaks really easy. And that also goes with the fan daggers. You'll see whenever I back off, I'll toss a fan dagger at the boss or something. It does a little bit of damage, but it also does some poise damage and prevents their poise from regenerating. So those are two really valuable things that you should add in your builds. But yeah, so I hope you found this helpful, interesting, or entertaining. I had a lot of fun making this one. It took me forever to make because I procrastinated a lot, but I hope the video was worth it. My name is DIABETOR, and I will catch you later.